April 8, 2009, for the first time in 200 years, pirates hijack an American cargo ship. The next 96 hours will turn into living hell for the ship's captain. You're watching Based on True Events, and today I'll tell you the real story that inspired the film Captain Phillips. You'll find out which of Captain Richard Phillips' heroic actions actually happened and which ones were added by the screenwriters. April 7, 2009, the American cargo ship Maersk Alabama carrying humanitarian aid is sailing from Oman with a stop in Djibouti heading toward Mombasa, Kenya, through the waters of the Gulf of Aden, 240 nautical miles of the Somali coast. Captain Richard Phillips and his chief mate Shane Murphy spot three small motorboats on radar quickly approaching the ship. Because they operate far from shore, pirates usually search for targets using a mothership. In this case, it was Taiwanese fishing vessel hijacked by the pirates about a month ago. Once close enough to their target, they launch smaller, faster motorboats. Those boats are also harder to detect on radar until they get very close. Upon noticing the chase, Captain Phillips ordered full speed ahead. At the same time, he tried to contact the company's office by phone and sent out a distress call over the radio, hoping it would be picked up by the coalition naval forces in the area. However, channel 16, the one he used, only works within line of sight range, about 20-25 miles. No ships capable of receiving the signal were nearby. Just like in the film, Phillips then started talking to himself over the radio, pretending that a Navy vessel had received his call and was on its way. The trick worked. One of the pirates' boats stopped chasing. The other two continued their approach and closed into within 4 miles. The sea that day was choppy, and Phillips had also ordered the Alabama to perform maneuvers to create additional waves. Under those conditions, the pirates were forced to give up the chase. The next incident, which happened at 3:45 a.m., was not shown in the film at all. Once again, a radar mark, and this time a call over the radio. Stop the ship, this is Somali pirates. The crew increased speed again, slightly changed course, and the pirates quickly fell behind. But what was the overall situation with piracy at that time? Spoiler, it was extremely serious. In 2008 alone, pirates hijacked 44 large vessels and took 850 hostages, a significant increase compared to just 12 ships the year before. The average Somali family lived on $600 per year. Pirates were paid $100 for successful hijacking. Most of them were young men aged 15 to 25 from fishing villages. In just the first quarter of 2009, pirates had already seized 18 ships and taken 178 hostages. They were getting access to more weapons, better navigation systems, and advanced communication tools. The threat was so serious that multiple international and national military missions were launched to counter piracy in the region. A special safety corridor was established, the IRTC, running from the Red Sea into the Arabian Sea through the Gulf of Aden. It was about 5 nautical miles wide and roughly 500 miles long. Between 12 and 20 warships from different countries were typically patrolling the corridor and surrounding waters. But Maersk Alabama was sailing straight to East Africa along unsecured commercial road. Using the official safety corridor would have meant a major detour. There were no armed guards or even any weapons for self-defense on board. The reason is that many countries the ship visited, like Kenya, Yemen or Saudi Arabia, prohibit carrying weapons on civilian vessels. The Alabama crew was well aware of the risks. The captain regularly received reports on pirate attacks, and now they have had forced an attempted attack themselves. After nighttime incident, the captain left the bridge only at 4:30 a.m. By 6 a.m., he announced a drill on board, a piracy hijack scenario. The crew was to hide and barricade themselves, and then wait for help. The key goal: don't let the pirates take any hostages. But at 6:45, a real contact appears on radar. The Alabama is sailing at 18 knots, the motorboat is approaching fast at 26 knots. This time, the pirates had planned everything carefully, staying on the mothership outside radar range and then sneaking up in small boat. Now, it was much harder for Alabama to react in time. Chief mate Shane Murphy looked through binoculars and saw 4 armed men. He grabbed 2 signal flares and fired them toward the boat. In the film, it's the captain who does it, but that's not a big deal. Murphy didn't expect the flares to start the pirates, but he wanted to show them they had been spotted. Pirates often rely on the element of surprise. 7:13 a.m. Long short, The ship's emergency alarm sounds, but the drill had just started. The crew thinks it's just another training step. Murphy runs across the main deck shouting to everyone, "This is not a drill, it's real. This is not a drill, get to your stations now." According to the protocol, the crew was supposed to gather in one of two muster points, in the chief mate's office on the main deck or across from the galley. By 7:40, the pirates are just a few hundred meters from the ship. They open fire from their boat. 14 out of 20 crew members leave their master area and head to the steering gear room, a small compartment in the engine room they've had prepared as a safe hideout. Four others remained on the bridge: Captain Phillips, third mate Colin Wright, and sailors Rees and Lacan. Chief mate Shane Murphy stayed behind to scout the situation. Just like in the movie, the crew activated the hoses to try repel the pirate boat, but the scene where Murphy tries to turn a jammed valve is fictional. In reality, the system already had blind spots, and those weren't specialized anti-pirate devices, but regular fire hoses with weak pressure. The Alabama's deck was only 20 feet, about 6 meters above the water, so by 8 a.m. the prepared pirates managed to pull alongside the starboard side and two of them climbed aboard using a ladder. At first, Shane Murphy barricaded himself in his office. Soon he heard gunshots. The pirates were shooting the padlocks of the grates blocking the stairwell. A few minutes later, Captain Phillips reported over the radio, "They are on the bridge. The bridge is taken." On the bridge, the captain immediately decides not to provoke the pirates and slows the ship down. He hopes that by cooperating with the attackers, he can buy time for the rest of the crew to hide. Then, sailors Wright and Rees, accompanied by one of the pirates, throw down a rope ladder, allowing the remaining pirates to climb aboard. The oldest of the hijackers is only 19, the youngest 17. The one of them has already taken part in successful attacks. For the others, it's their first mission. They are inexperienced, under extreme stress, and capable of anything. The pirates are thrilled when they learn they've captured Americans. Americans are worth big ransom money. They demand that the entire crew come up to the bridge or they'll start shooting. Phillips relays the message over the radio, but he doesn't say the code word, so the crew knows not to respond. Meanwhile, Shane Murphy leaves his office and moves across the main deck in short bursts, reporting everything he sees to the captain over the radio. They use a Boston accent and speak quickly so the pirates can't understand. Murphy also asks the captain to tell the pirates a smaller crew number so they won't search for him and he can secretly prepare countermeasures. Chief engineer Matt Fisher and lead technician Mike Perry arrive in the steering gear room and disable the bridge controls, though the pirates can steer the ship toward the Somali coast. They don't yet know that other two pirates have boarded and are making sharp turns to rock the ship and interfere with them. This causes the pirate boat to break loose and drift away. Now the pirates have no way to retreat. Then the crew goes further and shuts down the entire ship, engines, power, navigation. Only emergency generators remain running with just minimal lighting. The crew resists with everything they have. The pirates keep searching for the hiding crew. Mike Perry is determined to stop them. The ship still has emergency lighting and the generators powering it are located on the main deck right in the plain sight. Perry managed to sneak up and shut them down right under the pirates' noses. The ship falls completely silent. Every sound now echoes through the vessel. This makes it easier for Perry and Shane to move around undetected. They meet up in the crane control room, switching their radios to a private channel and start planning. They decide to wait for nightfall and, if possible, launch an attack on the pirates. The sky is clear, it's about 86 degrees Fahrenheit, and in the cramped hideout where most of crew is hiding, it's even hotter. There is no ventilation, it's unbearable. Perry and Shane make several trips to bring water and medical kit to the hideout. During one of these trips, an incident happens that resembles a scene in the film. Captain Phillips and one of the pirates, while walking the ship, almost stumble upon Shane Murphy. But instead of the galley like in the movie, this happened near a lifeboat where Murphy was searching for a radio. On the bridge, the pirates send sailor Colin Wright to bring up the rest of the crew, but he escapes and hides. So the pirates send one of their own along with third mate Rees. Rees gains the pirates' trust, says he's Muslim too and is willing to help, but only if the pirate leaves his weapon behind. The pirate agrees. Somewhere deep in the engine room, Mike Perry hears them coming. He hides behind the structure and attacks the pirate on the shadows. Perry, who was 60 years old at the time, managed to wound the pirate several times with a sharp object. One of the wounds is quite serious. Chief Mate Shane Murphy grabs the UHF radio from the captain's cabin and decides to climb one of the cranes to send a distress call, but the ship isn't fully loaded, so to hide behind containers, Murphy has to cross several dozen meters of open space right under the pirate's line of sight. Murphy had already spent a year on the ship and used to jog on deck regularly, so he knew it inside and out. That helped him to move unnoticed. Around 1 p.m. he reached the top of the crane and then hears on the radio, "One secured, one secured." It's Perry who has brought the captured pirate to the hideout. Shane sends out a distress call. "Mayday, mayday, this is Maersk Alabama, US flagship, American crew. We've been taken hostage by 4 Somali pirates." The pirate's own radio is turned to the same frequency. They start asking who is speaking. A short exchange follows. Murphy, encouraged by the captured pirate, even threatens the remaining hijackers. Murphy doesn't get an immediate response to his mayday, so he repeats a trick that Captain Phillips had taught him and pretends to be a coalition warship rushing to help. Still, the signal went through. Most likely it was relayed by a nearby vessel. 500 miles to the west, the guided missile destroyer USS Bainbridge, under the command of Frank Castellano, receives orders from the Operations Center to change course immediately and proceed at full speed. They are the closest ship to the hijacking site, but it will still take them at least 14 hours to get there. It's symbolic. William Bainbridge, after whom the ship is named, was a famous naval officer and pirate fighter. He too had once been captured. In the year 1803, his ship Philadelphia was taken by Tripolitan forces and he spent 19 months in captivity. During the transit, the Bainbridge crew uses the time to gather intelligence. They launch a drone to the area and receive updates from Navy aircraft. They also have a rare and valuable Somali language translator on board, who provides many useful insights. To assist the Bainbridge, the frigate Halliburton and the anti-piracy mission flagship USS Boxer also sent toward Maersk Alabama. About 4 hours have passed since Alabama crew captured one of the pirates. The situation is at standstill. Then the captain reports over the radio he has offered the pirates 30,000 from ship's safe in exchange for them leaving the ship in the lifeboat, and they agreed. It seems like a solution that could work for everyone, but in order to lower the lifeboat into the water, some of the ship's power needs to be restored. That requires manpower, and everyone in the hideout is half-conscious and barely able to think. They ask Perry several times what to do, but once they receive clear instructions, they summon the strength to act. An important detail not shown in the film: originally the pirates were supposed to live in a regular open boat with an outboard motor. They even boarded it with the captain, but the engine stalled. Had they stayed in that boat, it would have made the Navy's job much easier later. Instead, they switched to the larger enclosed lifeboat. By 7 p.m. the crew had the lifeboat ready. Boatswain Rios volunteered to check if everything was in order. Third engineer Cronin went with him for backup. The lifeboat was lowered into the water. The pirates and the captain stood near the ladder ready to board. The crew was holding the captured pirate above on the upper deck. Murphy said to the captain, "We'll release the pirate. He goes down, you come up." But the captain wanted to show the pirates how to operate the lifeboat. Shane repeated that he should come up immediately. He thought the captain nodded. The pirate went down. Rios and Cronin came back up, but the captain just stayed there standing. Shane shouted again for him to come up. The captain replied that he'd show the pirates how to steer, but by then the pirates had already aimed their weapons at him. They pushed the captain inside and shut the lifeboat door. It began moving toward the Somali coast. Now Shane Murphy was in charge aboard the Alabama. They locked the lifeboat in the spotlight beam and followed it. From the bridge, they managed to contact coalition ships and even requested a flyover. A military aircraft flew low over the lifeboat hoping to scare the pirates, but it had no effect. Around 1 a.m. Captain Phillips came on the radio. He said that if Alabama stopped, the pirates would stop too and wait for sunrise. Murphy invited them to return to the ship, but they refused. Soon, other pirate vessels began to appear on radar. It seemed the pirates were hoping to link up with them. Just before dawn on April 9th, the Navy destroyer USS Bainbridge arrived on the scene. Soon after came the Halliburton carrying helicopters. A group of Navy personnel boarded the Alabama and ordered the crew to leave the area immediately and proceed to their destination, Mombasa. For them, the ordeal was over, but not for Captain Phillips, who had now been stuck for several hours in a cramped lifeboat with the pirates. News of the American crew's capture was everywhere. Public pressure mounted on President Barack Obama's administration as officials scrambled to find the best way out of the crisis. Throughout next 2 days, the military negotiated with the pirates. The hijackers demanded money and safe road back to Somalia. A small Navy boat was sent to the lifeboat several times to deliver supplies, assess the situation inside, and install listening devices. The assault ship USS Boxer also arrived in the area, strengthening their real presence and increasing pressure on the pirates. They were floating in a tiny lifeboat with small windows, while massive warships maneuvered around them and helicopters flew overhead. After 16 hours on the boat, the Captain Phillips noticed one of the pirates had dozed off and he jumped into the water, but the Navy ships were too far away and the pirates quickly pulled him back on board. They became convinced that military was secretly giving instructions to Phillips, so they threw away his radio and cut off all communication. Castellano requested assistance from Navy commanders. He had previously supported them with drone surveillance and knew exactly what they were capable of. The White House decided this was a job for SEAL Team 6, one of the most lethal operators and snipers in the world, who would later take down the most wanted terrorist on the planet. But they were 8,000 miles away. How do we get them to the Somali coast fast? The Navy SEALs chose the most epic way to arrive. On April 10th, they took off from Naval Air Station Oceana in Virginia aboard C-17 transport aircraft. They refueled mid-air at least 3 times during a 16-hour flight, and in the early hours of April 11th at 2:30 a.m., they parachuted from high altitude into total darkness over open ocean, deploying their chutes late so the plane would remain virtually unheard. A boat picked them up and took them to the Bainbridge. After 2 days of drifting, the lifeboat was now only 24 miles from the Somali coast. Navy ships used maneuvers and water cannons to push it back, trying to turn the boat around and blow it off course using helicopter rotor wash. 62 hours into the standoff, the pirates lost their patience. They opened the hatch, leaned out and fired at the Halliburton. Thankfully, no one was hurt. One factor that may have contributed to the pirates' growing anxiety was that they had run out of khat, a narcotic leaf they chewed to fight seasickness. Soon after, negotiations resumed. On the translator's advice, Captain Castellano told the pirates they had drifted into the waters controlled by a rival clan and would need to negotiate with the elders before going ashore. He offered to hold the meeting at sea, but said they'd need to tow the lifeboat to calmer waters. The pirates, suffering from the swells, agreed. In reality, Bainbridge towed them further away from the coast. The film shows the boat running out of fuel and tribal elders negotiating a ransom, but that's not true. What the film does get right is that the other pirate boats that had once been headed their way eventually turned around, likely intimidated by the presence of so many warships. The pirates' plan for escape was willing apart, and that made them more willing to believe whatever the US Navy was telling them. On the deck of the Bainbridge, directly facing the towed lifeboat, snipers from SEAL Team 6 took up position. The lifeboat was being slowly and discreetly pulled closer until it was just 25 meters away. After the shooting incident, the White House authorized the use of lethal force if the life of the Captain Phillips was in danger. Still, taking out the pirates was incredibly difficult. The lifeboat was enclosed and the portholes were tiny. The situation began to escalate on the morning of April 12, Easter Sunday. One of the pirates, Abdulwali Muse, said he wanted to come aboard the Navy ship to receive medical care. He was the one wounded by Mike Perry. In the film, it's shown that he was tricked into coming on board for negotiations, but that's not true. He tried to negotiate once he was aboard the Bainbridge, but of course he was detained and not allowed to return. At the same time, the pirates radioed it that Captain Phillips also needed medical attention. A Navy medic approached the lifeboat and handed Phillips a change of clothes, blue pants and a bright yellow t-shirt. Phillips didn't realize it at the time, but the military wanted him to literally stand out in the dark. There is one more detail the movie dramatizes. It shows Phillips giving his exact position in the lifeboat to help the snipers, that didn't happen. The SEALs only had a raw idea of where he was. The last straw came when Phillips once again tried to fight off the pirates and they pointed their weapons at him. He had been held hostage for over 90 hours and his nerves were breaking down. At that moment, Captain Castellana gave the green light to take the shot. 3 snipers, 3 targets, 25 meters between them. The military had to execute a perfectly synchronized shot so that none of the pirates would have time to react. They also required to use special rounds designed to prevent muscle contraction after impact to ensure the pirates wouldn't pull the trigger. The snipers were highly trained for this type of mission, but the rocking of both the lifeboat and the ship, plus the limited line of sight, made everything more complicated. They had to wait for the exact moment when all 3 pirates were visible through the tiny windows, and don't miss that 1-second window. Around noon on April 12th, the chance finally came. After holding their targets for hours, the snipers fired 3 simultaneous shots. Seconds later, a second Navy team stormed the boat. They found the 3 pirates dead and Captain Phillips alive. He was immediately brought aboard for medical care. And yes, the dramatic scene in the film where the lifeboat jerks to a stop before the shot, pure fiction, but that doesn't make the military operation any less brilliant. Now that we've reconstructed the full timeline, we can compare it to how it was portrayed in the film. The movie focuses on Captain Phillips' heroism and quick thinking, and yes, he did act selflessly, risking his own life to protect his crew, but as we know now, the bold actions of First Mate Shane Murphy and the Chief Engineer Mike Perry were critical in hiding the crew, holding off the pirates, and enabling the military response. If it hadn't been for the miscommunication during the exchange, this story might have ended even sooner. The only surviving pirate, Muse, was sentenced to 33 years and 9 months in prison. Richard Phillips returned to the sea a year later, but not for long. He soon took a land-based position. 11 of 20 crew members sued the ship's owner and operator for failing to provide proper security. The case was settled out of court. That's it from me for today. If you enjoyed the story, leave a comment to support the channel and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss more stories where cinema meets reality. This was Nikita, see you next time.